Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about fractional plates because there's one of those things that a lot of people consider to be an invaluable tool. A lot of people consider them to be worthless, and I think the reality is they fall somewhere in between. And I am someone who has a set of fractional plates that weigh 1.25 pounds each, and I do use them. But I will say that in many cases they may not be necessary. And so when we talk about fractional plates, a lot of people would say, well, what's the point? Why would you ever want to micro load something up? And realistically, it just has to do with the fact that sometimes a weight bump with the smallest plates you have is probably inappropriate if your goals are to stay at a specific rep, right? So, for example, let's say you were trying to work with exactly 3 sets of 10, okay? And you want to increase, you want to have small amounts of progressive overload, but you can't go up 5 pounds. Let's say you're working with an exercise that you can't move large amounts of weight on, right? Not something you can do 300 or 400 pounds on. Let's say you're doing an exercise you can do 120 pounds on. It could be an overhead press. It could be a bench press. If you're really jacked, it might be curls, but you're doing 3 sets of 10 with that, and you're doing 120 pounds. But a 5 pound jump might drop you all the way down to 9 reps, 8 reps. You might not even be able to do 10 on your first one. And so in order to work with that, you might use the microplates. And it has to do especially exercises that are smaller amount. And some people choose to use them on big exercises too, because a PR is a PR. You know, if you've been stuck at a 495 deadlift, they can be a valuable psychological tool trying to get to 500. Let's say you haven't been able to pull 500, but you've been able to pull 495 or squat 495. Throw those microplates on and you go 497 and a half. And as funny as that sounds, a lot of people say, well, why don't they just hit the 500? Because you know what? People get mental hangups with big weights. It messes with your head. And sometimes, and this may sound funny to a lot of people, but it's reality. And it's not always guys who you're like, oh, that guy sounds like a pussy. No, sometimes it really isn't. That big 500 on that lift psychs you out. And so if you just go below it and you do the 497 and a half, which is still heavier than you've been hitting, it's a PR. And any PR when you've been stuck with a big lift is a PR. It builds confidence. It can build confidence. So we're not only dealing with the issue of the microloading, but we're also dealing with a mental aspect of it also. Sometimes we're dealing with a mental aspect. And I've seen elite lifters. I mean, J.M. Blakely had talked about that in an interview he did not that long ago. That there are times when he's just trying to add on a lift, shaving little plates down to make 1 pound increments so that he could add 1 pound to an exercise, or even doing 1 pound plates like that and only putting one on one side so that he could add a pound a week to a really big lift like a 500-pound bench press or something. Just making those little increments because he had determined that he needed to add a pound a week to reach his goal. So he would use microloading and fractional plates like that to add a pound to stay on track towards a goal. Okay? Now, does the body really know that difference? No. And that's kind of the point people will make all the time. They'll say, well, if you don't have calibrated plates, those fractional plates don't matter. Well, now in my case, you guys see me using calibrated plates right there on the camera. I am using calibrated plates. I know to the gram what my plates weigh. Those are exactly 45 pounds. They're not 45.01. They are 45.00. They are calibrated, guaranteed. And I would say that with home gym guys, if you're going to invest in quality stuff, calibrated plates are not as expensive as you might think they are. They're expensive. Don't get me wrong. They may not be as much as you think. Especially if you only need a set. I have 10 of them, right? So I have calibrated plates. So that is a non-issue for me. But what about the rest of you? What if you're going to a commercial gym and you're using plates that vary up to 2 pounds? Right, because it's not uncommon for a 45-pound plate, even from a normal brand, to be off by a pound. Okay? Really, really cheap brands are sometimes off by 3 pounds, is a worst case. That's not super common, but with some of the cheapest, oldest brands, sometimes they are. So, but realistically, when you're looking at it, you're going, well, you got three 45-pound plates on each side, and they are plus or minus 1 pound, right? So you're talking about you could be off by up to 6 pounds. So what difference does it make? It's like, well, it does matter because number one, because you don't know the exact weight of your plates, you have an estimate. But that estimate is going to be the same. You're always going to be plus or minus, your 5 pounds or your 6 pounds. But your constant can be the microplates. Let's say your goal is to add 2.5 pounds a week to a bigger exercise for your work sets. Okay, so you want to add the microplates every week. So what if over the course of 12 weeks, let's say you're doing that for 12 weeks. So what if over the course of 12 weeks, you're plus or minus 6 pounds because your microplates, your fractional plates are a constant, just like your barbell's a constant. Let's say you use the same barbell every time. So you're looking at it and you're then able to say, but I'm still creating an upward trend. Yes, it's a plus or minus. Yes, it's an undulation in terms because I could get different plates each time. But your general trend is upward. So even if you're plus or minus that, if you're going up 2.5 pounds every week, see where I'm going with this? It's 5 pounds every 2 weeks. That's 30 pounds. Okay, so technically over the course of that 12 weeks, you started with 315 plus or minus 6, and you end up with 345 plus or minus 6. You're still maintaining the general upward trend, and the fractional plates still give you a degree of control over that. So what if the margin of error on the plates is different than that? But here's what you could do. The plates tend to all be off in a similar direction if it's the same brand. So in other words, let's say there's a specific set of certain brand of plates that are at your gym. Okay, use the same brand of plates every time. If you're trying to be that consistent, try to grab the same brand of plates. In fact, sometimes they're discolored and marked, and sometimes you know which plates. A lot of guys have their faithful plates. They're plates that they always use when you've been going to the same gym for a long time. A lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have your plates. You got that one that's discolored a certain way, or those 4 of them. You always grab those 4 because they're your trusty, reliable plates. And you just feel stronger with those plates because they're comfortable to you. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Lifters who've been lifting a long time. You guys do this, and you know you do this. You got your trusty, reliable plates. Okay? You're going to oftentimes grab similar plates or the same plates. Okay? It's not going to be as big of a variable. You may not know the exact amount of weight every time, but those same plates are going to be off the same amount. And that same company, like let's say they're all slightly under for that one company, right? They're anywhere from a ½ pound to a pound too light. Realistically, that's only going to be like 2 pounds variation with the same brand of plate, right? So when we start mixing and matching all the plates, we really don't know what we're getting. So that's what people need to remember. It's even though it's not a perfect, it still gives you a degree of control in the variable, even though you're using possibly random plates. And so you could be off by 5 pounds either direction. So your weight on your bar is plus or minus. The fractional plates will always be the same. It still gives you the ability to have a degree of control on your upward trend. Now, I could make the argument, on the other hand, that they are useless for someone who's not trying to hit exact numbers. In other words, for someone who is doing a heavy single, yeah, they absolutely give you a degree of control. For a person who's saying, I'm doing exactly 3 by 10, they may not matter, and here's why. Because if we don't mind a little varying in rep ranges, okay, they become less useful. Like if your goal is like I often do, let's say I'm doing 5 sets of 10 on a lift. I try to, on the last set, do an AMRAP a lot of times. So if I can get 11 reps, I might be able to go up. If I can get 13 reps on my last 10 rep set, I probably need to bump everything by 5 pounds. And you know what? If I can get 13 on a final set of 10, I know I can increase the entire exercise 5 pounds. So the fractional plates may not matter in that case. But what if you can't get that many? What if you're barely able to squeeze out an 11th rep? And you still want to try to work your way up? Okay, well, the fractional plates become useful at that point. They become useful because that might be the only weight that you can add and still get your 3 sets of 10. All right, so fractional plates are useful and they're a good tool to have. And, you know, for all those things that I broke down, they may not matter as much for the big exercises, but what about your small movements? On your exercises that are less than 150 pounds, okay? They're always useful for that. They're always useful for increasing. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.